Right. Hey there, this is Leila Benitez James for Telltale Poetry. I'm here with New York poet Sheila Maldonado. Sheila Maldonado is the author of the newly released poetry collection, That's What You Get, recently out with Brooklyn Arts Press this past February 2021. And about the book, one of my favorite poets, Don Lundy Martin, said, using humor, language play, and innovative visual strategies, Sheila Maldonado takes on the full range of human experience, from familial love to pain and grief in the wake of racial injustice, quoting, "History, a fugitive in the womb." And she goes on to say, it's also a reinvention of Frank O'Hara's talking poems, but in Maldonado's poems, there's something at stake. A steady, beautiful rage brewing just below the surface. And then taking it back, her debut poetry collection, One Bedroom Solo, which I loved, was published by Fly By Night Press, a gathering of the tribes in 2011. She was born in Brooklyn and raised in Coney Island, New York, across the street from the Atlantic Ocean. Her family hails from Honduras. Her poems have appeared in Gulf Coast, Ping Pong, Ratapalix, and Callaloo, and online at Luna Luna, Hyperallergic, and Asterix Journal. Her poems have also been anthologized in Bettering American Poetry, Volume 3, The Breakbeat Poets, Volume 4, Latinx, Brooklyn Poets Anthology, The Wandering Song, Central American Writing in the United States, Word, an anthology by a gathering of the tribes, and Me No Habla with Acento, Contemporary Latino Poetry. She is a Canto Mundo Fellow and a Creative Capital awardee as part of the Desveladas Visual Writing Collective. And she has served as an artist in residence on Governor's Island, New York for the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council and Cultural Envoy to Honduras for the US State Department. She currently teaches English for the City University of New York and is a teaching artist, has led residencies for Teachers and Writers Collaborative and the National Book Foundation. She holds degrees in English from Brown University and creative writing poetry from the City College of New York. She lives in a one-bedroom in Uptown Manhattan, where she is working on an ongoing project about lifelong obsession with ancient Maya. Sheila, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. That
And
was exhausting.
yeah.
I'm exhausted. I want to get in my bed now.
Well, you can take a slight break because we're actually I'd love to start with one of your visual poems. So I'm gonna do a screen share and let us have a look at that.
In this pod, this vessel, a crack known only to mice and water bugs, reverting to roller coaster origins, one high hour, one low. All the music they leave behind. I hope I leave enough music behind. It is as wrong to think you are nothing. You have nothing to contribute, as it is to think you are everything, that none of it could be without you. I am the night keeper, time breaker, shouldn't go to bed without singing. All we have is our devotion, how we earn our spots on the floor, flesh answering rhythm in waves, body cracked thumb. Disciple of spin, tame a loose planet in the orbit of my skirt, here to become the glyph, slip into the wormhole of my hip, my neck, my back. Scratch the slur, beat the word, string talking to wind. Syllables, notes, spirits, as they are uttered. I insisted on the dark city, now persist in the dark city. Where am I? Did I live? Have I lived? Okay to go into a dimension of vast idiocy. Don't care if the neighbors see a rush of skin from their window. My body taking off.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I've watched that video so many times now. So you
This time
don't,
last year. That was this time last year.
so good. Well, and it's such, I mean, we were talking a little bit about before we started recording about just how strange it's been to, like, you know, be creative in the pandemic and be creative in the different spaces.
The most glamorous thing you could possibly do is be a playwright and, you know, be like George.
Oh, next video played through. But I'd like to know, so you don't limit yourself to poetry on the white page. And I thought maybe we could start by talking about how you've mixed media with video and music in your work. And I've been wondering, like, when did that start from you, or is that how it started for you? Because it was, I mean, you were doing that before, you know, before pandemic stuff, but certainly, you know, in the pandemic, being in our homes, like, you know, video media became.
Sure, yeah. It was definitely before. It's because of social media. I mean, really, I mean, I just have to deal with that, fess up to it. It was like Facebook and Instagram, and especially Facebook and Instagram. It started with Facebook albums, really. Like, you know, how long have I been on Facebook now? Like, I've never left Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm like one of those people who is just an idiot and stays on Facebook. And it's because it's the platform of my age range. Like, Twitter is just too young for me. Like, I don't do well on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's too many words. Also, Instagram, I can't believe how much I love Instagram. I mean, I never thought I would be that person quite, but it's all just social media. Like, the albums make you organize those photos, like at first, like in the beginning, the tens, excuse me.
Mhm.
There was a lot of these Facebook albums, and I would just make a bunch. And one of them, this one that I did in Honduras, I think for a couple of friends, like, who are also artist people, kind of noticed it. And that's how I kind of got started with Desveladas, with the visual writing collective that we got a grant for, that we're always sort of stalled on the project. But it's an idea that, like, the visual writing thing came from a lot of the social media stuff. And it started with this one Facebook album that had to do with, I was there during the coup in 2009.
Right.
And so I made like this Facebook album that's kind of like a poem. And that really, I'd say, is the beginning. And then Instagram is the next part of that, next sort of level of it. And stories, sometimes you're just putting up random things, but sometimes you are actually making a story or a poem, you know. So that's really how these things happened. And I think even with that video, you know, I'm a very good friend of mine, this artist, Gabriel Garcia Roman, who I've done some work with, including this like Maya mural thing that is a whole other project. He's big on Instagram, and he's definitely an influence, and his stories right now are completely, I mean, he should get a grant just for his stories, for his Instagram stories. He really should.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, I see people do stuff with those forms. I think of them as forms, and I'm just very impressed by it, and I want to copy it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That's something that I've been wanting to experiment with more. And also just like taking everything seriously. I think sometimes, you know, we talked about with One Bedroom Solo, like you had the TV show Frasier in there. And I think a lot of times people have this like either or mentality. But that's what you get, has like an epigraph from Will and Grace and like URL links. Like I had the digital copy for like Bismarcky, and the collection felt really contemporary, without feeling lightweight at all, which is a bit like that Don Lundy Martin quote. So can you talk about striking that balance? Like, is that like just a natural thing that happened in your work that people have commented on, or are you trying to?
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I'm really happy that that's the tone. I think I've gotten the comment that the tone on it is good, that works.
Yeah.
And that it's a good mix. And I did fear it being too light or I think more too light than too heavy.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm from this place, or my family's from this place, Honduras, that I think people really expect very heavy shit from.
Right.
And I don't know who they are talking to, because I don't really know how you live if you're really immersed in all the heavy shit. And I know that I'm from people who I think to deal with that heavy shit are kind of a little too jokey sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
Yes.
Hondurans are a little too jokey. Like, they will joke their asses through a dictatorship. Like,
Yeah.
and so that's a little bit much, but you know, that is how it is. Like, and even though I feel like American and I am American, like, I know that my sensibilities are from people who kind of have gone through way too much and just are like, fuck it, we're gonna crack a joke about it.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna attach ourselves to light things like American pop culture to get through, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like that, like, that's American pop culture has been an education, like, as much as anything, if not more. You know, it is like, I think really how the United States runs the world is through its cultural output,
Yeah.
its pop cultural output, especially. And like, you know, so to me, that's what raised me. That's what I understand. That's the language I speak, and so be it. Like, like I say, I would stay concerned about the lightness, but not really. Part of me is like, you know, like I say, it's a survival tactic. And a friend of mine was like, I know you think you're light, but it seems like you want to be light despite, you know, the shit that's happening, or the shit that's happening gets in the way of you wanting to be light.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a block in the book. Like, at some point you're like,
yeah.
you know, there's like, I'm trying to be, I mean, I think that's why I like the Dawn Lundy's quote, the thing about Frank O'Hara and the stakes. I'm from that school. I do like a lot of New York school stuff, and I had a good teacher who was awesome from that kind of thing. But I remember wanting to write this poem over and over about, I wish I could be detached and kind of Buddhist and Dada like everybody, and I am.
Yeah.
But then there's too much other shit. There's like all the sort of stuff that people of color, women of color are, you know, from also writing from, which I think I was trying to escape, like the trauma, all that stuff, you know, like just the trauma of being some marginalized thing. And I'm not great at writing it. I really feel I'm not as good as other people. I think other people do that. I think other people will do that. And I can give you some light distracting shit that's running away from the trauma, but there's still trauma, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't know how to deal with it. So
yeah, no, but it works. And like this book, like it really, I mean, I'll tell people to read it, but also like reread it. And like with the images, everything is like, I don't know, it's sneaky. Like I like whoever said that about like, you're trying to write about light stuff and the heavy stuff is just like, you know, keeps like knocking on the door. And I was thinking too, like One Bedroom Solo didn't have as much of a like Spanish influence, or like didn't have that same level of multilingualism that this new collection has. Was that also just kind of like you letting more of the world in?
Oh, really? I was afraid this one didn't. Okay, I can't tell. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought this one had more.
The second one, you think?
Yes, yeah, the second one has a bit more, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have no, you know, I was like, I guess because, you know, whatever, you have this idea of your book in your head and you don't know how it gets received. So I thought I didn't have enough songs like that, where I had a few songs in One Bedroom Solo. And that to me was the way the Spanish got in, or other language. And there's like Garifuna in there too. But like, yeah, so I think my niece said something like, you know, I mean, she said it about me in general, but I think she had actually read the book. So I was like, oh, look at you read the book. And she was like, you know how you sort of throw Spanish in there, like you don't even know where it's coming from. It just sort of happens. And I was like, Yeah. Yes, I do know. Yes. And so yeah, so I realized that that does happen. Like there's stray lines
Mhm.
that I just sort of start a poem with Spanish and then abandon it and I don't translate.
Yeah,
And
no, that's good though.
yeah, I think that's how it functions for me. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
it talks to my mother. My mother understands English, but we're between both all the time. All the time. And she speaks just fine. Like she has a heavy accent, but she speaks more now in this point of her life than she ever has. So it's really kind of like the way I speak to my mom, which is, we'll do it whenever. It's not like I'm gonna do it for you the way it's supposed to be formally, whatever, italicized and translated and
Yeah.
whatever. My general audience is my friends and my family, not, and that's a lot of immigrants and people who speak other languages and people of color and
Mhm.
gays and all kinds of folks. It's not really, I have some white friends, yes I do, but like they know that the world I'm in and they know how I speak and I'll translate if I want to.
Yeah, that's good. And then I'm gonna pop up a little of your book again, actually, just to get at that image. Because I want to ask you a bit how the baikus and these images came about. Like I know you were saying that like you were, I guess Facebook and social media in general just made you think about images in a new way, and on like kind of raising it to that level of art. But could you talk a bit about just how you put these together, and I mean like visually on the page, and just as well as crafting them?
Totally Facebook, first of all, totally.
Wow. Yeah.
This is like, you can go to, if you want to go to April 2014,
Uh-huh.
in my Facebook albums, this is the Facebook album. And like, I don't even know how I put those pictures, how did I put those words on? Literally, it's probably, like I do a lot of anthologies. I used to for Teachers and Writers Collaborative. I was a teaching artist for a long time with them. And you make anthologies like on Word, and you just sort of you're making anthologies of children's writing, and you get like children's art and you put it next to their poems.
Oh, right.
And so Word has capabilities to do that, so you just fuck with Word, and you can you can change the font on it, and I knew they were going to be haiku. Basically, I think social media is great for haiku. All that, like Twitter was literally almost the size of a haiku for the longest time.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean, people are annoyed and bored sometimes when you try to get poetic in your captions, but I still do it like when I feel that it's happening, like when I have a little series of pictures that are like working together, and this one I'm sure I actually went over these haiku a million times with my editor because he also loves haiku, and he just decided to tell me all these things about haiku, and I was like, no, I know about haiku too. And so we were tearing these apart for like weeks and months, and I was like so annoyed. But these are the kinds of things that held up the book. But yeah, this is literally a Facebook album that I tweaked haiku on and like made like pages out of with Word, I'm sure, because I really don't even know how to use Photoshop.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is literally Word.
I mean, I love it. I mean, we always like in a lot of these at Telltale Poetry, a lot of times we're trying to, give advice to people starting out. But one of the most exciting things I think about social media is that like a lot of people are writing very poetically without really knowing that they are, whether or not it's from like the Twitter character limit or just like, captioning different things. And this is, I think, the first time that I've seen it like in an actual on the page poetry page though. And it was really exciting because I think that there's no reason that we shouldn't, think that these forms aren't forms.
Oh, they're totally forms. I think that there's a lot of people who do it. I mean, I have a friend who's also like, don't give it all away. This all may be the same friend. This is my friend Lela and Kobe, who is like my collaborator a lot. He's a film. He shows up in the book a bit. He's like the person I acknowledge kind of first. And he's always annoyed that I'm giving it all away on social media, because they can someday just say, we own you, and they do,
Yeah.
So you try not to give it all away. I don't know how people can really output all the time on these things and write.
Yeah.
I think I put a lot out, but not like all the time. I don't think I'm all the time. Twitter is definitely the worst to me. I can't with Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of writing. So I don't know how the writers really do it. Like people who write, for a while there were like whole essays and stuff. There's still some. Who was dude who did that? Who was really about the essay?
On Twitter, you mean?
Yes. The guy, the Walking City, Teju Cole.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Teju Cole was really about that Twitter essay years ago, like where you
And
do
it allows you to test stuff as well. Like you're getting free feedback in a lot of ways. I mean, you can also, throw it out into the void and no one pays any attention to it.
Sure.
But there is a way that sometimes when things are going viral, you talk about like not needing to pitch that to an outlet after. You can just show them a screenshot of like people's reaction to it. And it's like,
it's totally an audience.
Yeah.
It is entirely an audience. And I think that's in some ways where my tone comes from too. Like I'm aware of the social media audience and that mix. So I'm really a creature of the time, sadly and not sadly,
Yeah, not sadly.
I mean, it's weird to put it in a book though, because the things don't move like they do on the screen, and but still it's accessible to people because of that, which is always something I want to be in some way. Like I want to be awkward and hidden a little, but I also want to be accessible. I don't want to be totally academic, basically. And that's the thing I don't want to be. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but
no, I think it's there's a lot of like posturing and snobbishness that goes into like trying to eschew like social media stuff. But I was thinking too of the article you wrote about teaching with blues poems and how like that wasn't considered like a high art form for a long time. And like now there's like a lot of academic writing about it that's like kind of legitimized it.
Right, but people didn't read. That was the oral tradition. That was and I'm from that too. Like my family doesn't read. Like I get to write. I mean, I should be writing more revealing stuff because my family wouldn't read it. And I would be just fine. Like they might not sue me because they wouldn't open that book. But maybe they would because it's about them, like, or something. I don't know. But my parents, my mom didn't finish like school, like didn't really go to school. Like she went to school till like 3rd or 4th grade or something.
Yeah, wow.
And my father went to high school and wanted to go to college, but never did. And he went late, like he graduated high school really late, like in his 20s. They were in Honduras. My father was the one who was more about education and aspirational that way. But there's something about that. And I always say I teach my parents, like the people I teach in community college in New York are like my parents. Like they have really varying degrees of literacy, and I'm talking to people that are dealing with that, like varying degrees of literacy, who want access to feel comfortable, but like I deal with a lot of literacy anxiety because everyone's immigrant and everyone, so I'm from that too. And so that pop culture is definitely educational then, like TV is educational, and that's where you're learning all the things, for better or for worse. So that's where my language comes from. And I did go to some fancy schools and read some fancy things. They broke me too. Like they kind of broke me. Like I just really, I get it now. I think I got some of the higher level stuff more in grad school and when I was trying to write my own poems. But like when you apply it, when you put it in the art, then I get theory and things like that. But I remember losing my mind in college trying to understand theory and really feeling not even just losing my mind, feeling like excluded by the language. and like, you know, really taking it personal. Like, I just was like, you don't want me to understand this. That's what it is.
Yeah, well,
And
and sometimes it keeps you from the page as well. Like I'm thinking about like what if you could give some advice to somebody who's like more like starting out, but who wants to work with like, you know, mixed media poetry, or wants to make videos, or wants to mix different stuff, like what would you, or what do you tell your students?
you know, it's funny, I haven't really taught the mixed media so much yet. I should, I guess, you know, it's sort of like it feels instinctual, so it's hard to teach.
Oh yeah.
Like, honestly, I start a lot with the picture, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like, when I was with this dealing with Desveladas, we've like tried to write like graphic novel, and you learn that like all these things are really scripts that become picture, so the word comes first. But I like picture first, so that's been a different thing, and it is the picture that defines what I'm going to write. So that's how that works for me. Like, I just dig in my phone, because the phone of course has become like a journal, and the more of a journal than my journal. Like, I have a picture for every day for like years, it's crazy. And I mean, that, you know, that's that's what happened with smartphones in the last 10 years and all that, 10-15 years. And I can't believe that that's, like I say, who I've become, that I really became such an animal of this little toy. And for me, that's where I'd start, I guess, you know, like, take it, you know, whatever strikes your fancy that day, like, that's your thought, that's your straight thought. And it's almost like more, like I say, instinctual and innate than like sometimes a word, the image, you know. So that's always where I start. But yeah, I don't know, kind of like I say, for instance, for that video, I was influenced by Gabriel, who was always posting himself dancing, right? And so I was like, I'm making some dance videos too. We missed dance, we were big clubby people, we loved going out and dancing. And so I just literally went in my phone and looked for all the dance videos that I did that were horizontal, because that's horizontal's the better, supposedly the better.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Look, you know, that's how it's supposed to be. But then I had another filmmaker person who said, no, it doesn't matter. But anyway, so literally just found 5 or so and strung them together and put them on iMovie and just slapped them together.
Oh wow, yeah, right. So just like editing it yourself.
Yeah, and didn't even worry about things like copyright, which those music pieces are copyright issues, you know. And but it's because other people worry about these things. I don't mind stealing all the time, as long as you do it well, kind of thing. But yeah, and I just literally just put 5 videos together, and then the decision on the words was, well, I couldn't write during the pandemic, truthfully. I could edit though.
Yeah.
And I could make that, I could do. I couldn't make new things. But I mean, we're still in it, and I'm sort of writing. But what I did was take old poems. Those are old pieces of old poems. I didn't really, there's like a couple of connectors that are new, like connecting lines, but mostly there's snippets of, I don't know, 10 poems, like five or so from One Bedroom Solo, and 5 or so from That's What You Get. So in a way, it's kind of a preview of the books, or a preview of the book. And so that's what I did. I was like, let me look up all my dance poems. I have a lot of poems that have to do with music and dance. And that's how it started. The beginning, I think, was totally new, like those first few lines, but most of it is made of pieces of, so it's like a little Frankenstein poem.
Yeah.
Like a collage. So yeah, so that's how it was. It was collagey and just piecing it to see what worked, and does it have you know, that last video with me stepping out the window really was like, you know, I didn't want it to be all dance, but I wanted it to be some kind of movement of what I was doing in the house. And that was it. Like, I just was like, what works, what doesn't, you know, it's again, like, it's hard to teach a little bit, but then not. I guess if there's basic things, like I started with iMovie. I went to, for the wording, I went to DaVinci Resolve, which is a program that my friend Ndlela again taught me to use for editing, and it does really cool stuff with words. It's a little difficult, but not so much. I mean, clearly if I could do it, I think anyone could do it, but I think other people do, like, I forget what they do for filmmaking. Oh geez, I forget the other programs, but that's how I did it. I just played with the word stuff, and you can move text up and down on it. It's really fun. So you get into this, like, and that's what, even with Desveladas, my friend Nelly and Macarena, like when we were trying to make some of this stuff, you realize you kind of get into the technical parts of it more than the writing. Like you have the writing, but then the writing is the launch to other things, launches you into other things. And I mean, and you hope the writing's good. Like, I mean, you're generally writers, like me and Macarena and Nelly were all writers to begin with. So, I think we have a good base there. So that if you move on to the other things, like the photo editing and the film editing, like at least you have a base in the writing, So yeah. I've had green tea, so I just yap away on green tea.
No, I love it. You're just like, I'm honestly like, I'm thinking like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. Like, I need to start.
Yeah, I say iMovie's a really good start. Like iMovie's really easy, and everyone has it if you have Apple stuff, and it doesn't do the wording stuff that I got to do on that, which a lot of people don't realize. I think that's the part they like and they don't realize it.
Yeah.
Like there's a filmmaker guy that I was dealing with who was like, that wording stuff is cool. Like that's good.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of work that you gotta zone out and like really get into it. You do get into a zone of like, is it the right amount of words on this like little part of the video? And then my favorite part of the video is when I put words on top of me, like they're like wind up on top, and I was like, ooh, that's cool, we can move words on top of me. And it just got like kind of glyphic in a way. There was like this quality of like feeling like I was making, like, my big obsession always is like the ancient Maya thing that I mentioned in my bios.
Yeah.
Me, it's like I'm like a student of these people who are the original writing of the Americas, and the writing is art. The writing is visual, right? Writing is signs. Writing is like is the meaning and the sound, and the image conveys these things. And it's the image. It's the image first, right? We're making the sign, and so that to me is like that's all writing. The image is writing. Like there's no real, you can disconnect them, but they weren't disconnected when it started. When language starts, like for you to interpret language, you have to have a sign that has a meaning and a sound, right? So that is theory. That's like when I'm like, oh shit, I understand theory. Well, if I understand the Maya and what the glyph is, and I get that, and then I understand how all of this is art. Like, Sieb, there's like a word Sieb, it's like ish. I say that I'm ish Sieb, she of the writing, but it's really she of the arts. Ish means she, and Sieb is arts, not really writing or image. It's all of them together. So that's why I'm into all, like, I think it's not weird to go into other arts because they talk to each other. That's the deal,
Yeah. And then I can't believe, like, we're just out of time, but we'd love to hear about some of your favorite books, and maybe even hear about poets who you think people don't talk about enough, or maybe doing, people who are doing something new, something different. Who's
there's so many people. I definitely have been on like this whole pandemic, like a lot of the Latinx poets that have been out. Like there was this list by this guy Ura Yohan Noel, whose book is also awesome, Transversal, latest book. Ura Yohan has got like 8 books, and he's a great, like, he just upholder of Latinx poetry in the United States, and he has a great list of folks. And I basically need to get everyone on that list all the time. So right now, like there was Felicia Zamora, and Florencia Melito, which this is Felicia's in I think she was in Arizona, but she's like Mexican from the US, and Florencia's Argentine from California. There's Janelle Pineda, who's Salvadoran from LA, who has a chapbook out that's so good. Then there's like all these folks from Fresno and I like a lot of California poets.
Yeah, you like the Callies.
I love California poets. I think, I don't know what it is. Maybe because there's a lot of Central Americans there,
Yeah.
or they have all the weed. I have no idea. But like there's all these people in Fresno that I love, Sarah Borjas and Anthony Cody, who was like gotten all the awards or all the nominations. That's a Borderland Apocrypha. That is talk about signs and glyphs. That thing is, I mean, really experimentally insane, and getting an award is so good.
Yeah.
And Michael Torres, is he not from Fresno? He's from Pomona, which is like LA area. An Incomplete List of Names. Totally, really such a good book. And I've been reading that. What else? There's like piles of stuff. But mostly like pretty much everyone Urayoan puts on that list. I was on this last year. Yeah, he's only done it like twice, but it's like for the Latinx project, and it's called like La Treintena, and he did it for basically all the pandemic books that really, kind of suffered in this time.
Yeah.
But he really bigged us all up. Like he did it for me last year, and then he did it for a whole group of new authors this year. So I would say look at that list. It's awesome.
Oh, sweet. We'll share that. And Sheila, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really good.
Thank you. And again, I know the green tea just had me yapping. So
oh, you're good. It's good. I'm gonna hyperlink like the mess out of all of this.
Good.